It is time for another professional match of StarCraft 2, and what I got for you today is a Terran versus Protoss played on Proxima Station LE. Spawning in the northeast corner, playing with the blue Terran pieces, we have none other than the player known as Alive. And his opponent spawning in the cross position, playing in red and playing with Protoss, we have none other than the Protoss known as Neeb. Now both of these players very good at the game. Neeb currently the rank 10 in the world, Alive currently the rank 14. They are both very good in their respective races, and I've been a massive fan of both of them for a little while right now. Neeb in particular, I believe it was in October of 2016, just a couple of months ago, about a half year or so ago, he ended up winning the Caspa Cup. Now the Caspa Cup is a predominantly Korean focused tournament, however I believe they invited a couple of non-Koreans as well, and Neeb, being from the United States of America, actually ended up absolutely smashing that tournament, obtaining the victory, and ever since then, I mean, he's been on my radar before that as well, but ever since then, I've been keeping a close eye on his performances, just because that was such an unheard of experience at the time. I mean, he already was very good, but that sort of like proved it, and really, I guess, put the nail in the coffin in that sense. Now, currently, like I said, he is the rank 10 in the world in prize money alone over the course of his career. He has earned 167,000 American dollars in prize money alone, just a little bit more actually than Alive, who has earned roughly $164,000. But regardless, both of these players are definitely very good at what they do. Now, recently, actually, the Terran versus Protoss matchup has been quite interesting. I mean, over the course of, the last couple of months, while it initially was heavily in favor of all of the Terran players, all of a sudden, Protoss players have figured out a new strategy that counters the current Terran aggression very well. And over the course of the last couple of weeks, all of a sudden this matchup is looking quite heavily in favor of the Protoss. Now, we'll see exactly what will happen in this particular match as well, but Neeb is most definitely a fan of this new school strategy that is based around the Adept and the Stargate. We'll see if he puts down a Stargate here in just a little bit. We already do see that Nexus going down here. But the funny thing is that after the nerf to the Liberator and then also a slight nerf to the Widowmine, all of a sudden Protoss versus Terran has become a completely different matchup. While for the longest time, for about, a good 3, 4, 5 months, Terran was just simply focusing on Siege Tank, Liberator, Bio kind of pushes, and Protoss was just simply mostly dying to that. It has sort of like swapped around. Now, just a little bit ago, I mean, I'm recording this video a day before it goes live, and just a couple of hours ago, as of me recording this video, they actually announced that they're gonna be nerfing the HP of the Adept by 10 health. Now, we'll talk about that in just a little bit. I don't think this Adept is actually gonna be able to get this Reaper right here. Now the Reaper will just barely be able to get away from that. But regardless, this new strategy right here is actually being dealt with quite aggressively. We can talk about that in just a little bit, because indeed we do see that Stargate Adept setup right now going down here for Neeb. He will probably have to get himself a Twilight Council here as soon as he can go ahead and afford one. As you may have already noticed, he of course is going to try and get as many probes out as he possibly can. But the Terran player, for the most part right now, will have to try and figure out exactly what is going on. Of course, Alive has got himself quite a few units right now, and of course, even though his opponent is going for a very strong strategy, that really doesn't mean, that he doesn't have a chance by any stretch of the imagination. But of course, since the Adept Phoenix style was reasonably new, and while Terran players were already struggling with it initially, over the course of the last couple of weeks, Protoss players have just gotten so much better at the execution. And, Neeb in particular, I mean, he's been going for that style a lot. He's been focusing on that strategy quite a little bit. He's been making some insane progress, in particular in his Phoenix Adept control. Now, of course, I don't really know if exactly that's gonna be happening in this match here as well, but we do indeed see that Phoenix follow-up right now after the first Oracle comes out. The first Oracle, of course, meant to do a little bit of pressure. There are a few Cyclones here waiting on the other end of the map. There's nothing in the natural right now, but there are plenty of Terran units right now ready to defend against all of this aggression that's incoming right now. Mostly this unit, though, at this point in the meta is meant more or less as a scout. I mean, you can already see Terran players have gotten really good at countering it. But the funny follow-up here is gonna be the ton of Phoenixes. Now, Phoenixes for the longest time did not really get counted in this matchup as a viable counter until Terran players figured out, or Protoss players rather figured out, that if you are really good at micro, right, and for example, you can pick up Widowmines with your Phoenixes before they can burrow, you can shut down Siege Tanks, you can shut down Liberators, you can shut down all of the dropships, you can shut down Widowmines, you can shut down pretty much all of the Terran units as long as your control control is on point. And exactly, you know, that's what we're seeing in this match right here as well. This is turning out to be exactly the style that I'm talking about. Now, the Terran player currently moving across the map. Of course, he's got a very menacing army, but the Photon overcharge here with the Mothership Core and all of the Adepts is probably going to be enough here. Actually, he's trying to shade forward right here as well, trying to see whatever damage he can do, canceling the shade right there at the last second, mostly just using that for scouting. There's, of course, a stasis ward here in this area too that will prevent the Terran from dealing a whole lot of damage. But you can see Protoss is mostly trying to buy time here, trying to trigger the army here as far forward as he possibly can, so the Photon overcharge can get triggered here. So there we go. Oh my god, beautiful control right away, lifting up that first Cyclone here. Second one, I mean, while the first Phoenix does end up falling there, the new Cyclone does already get picked up right here as well, and that aggression just got absolutely brilliantly shut down. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of Terran players have been describing this matchup as sort of like an impenetrable kind of base. I mean, a lot of Terran players have been trying to do all kinds of different aggression, but the Phoenix style combined with the Adepts have been picking up a ton of kills. So like I said, right, they're currently planning on removing the total amount of HP, or reducing rather the total amount of HP of a Adept by 10. So they're basically gonna get a straight up nerf, which seems a little bit significant. I can talk about that at the end of this match, because otherwise, you know I'm gonna be on a tantrum. I know I'm gonna be rambling on about different kinds of things, and I'm gonna forget keeping track of this match. We'll talk about that in just a little bit, but the Adept nerf is going to be quite significant in the matchup. Now, the Oracle, once again, getting back into the main base, scouting out exactly what's going on, figuring out that there are 2 tech labs right now, researching whatever they can, and currently, of course, that is going to be the stim pack as well as the combat shield research, which will allow the Terrans to go for a very powerful timing attack. At the same time, on the other end, we do indeed see that Twilight Council finish up right now together with the Forge. We see that research right now for the Adept attack speed, as well as the +1 attack here that makes Adept significantly more powerful. And really, the Phoenixes are mostly used here for patrolling, to figure out if any kind of dropships are coming in, and to shut down any kind of potential Terran aggression. This is what I mean, right? While the Adept is still doing some work here on the other end of the map, somehow it managed to sneak in there. But this is what I mean. I mean, these Phoenixes are just simply in a really powerful position, and they're there to pick up any kind of potential dropships. Of course, they can move and shoot at the same time, which makes it very difficult for these Terran players to really get some damage in. Now, of course, this is a very high-level Protoss strategy, right? This is not an easy thing to do. I mean, if you've been watching the live stream at all, you may have noticed that I'm trying to execute this style here as well, but it's not easy at all. It is just simply a matter of practice, though, before Protoss players will become nearly unstoppable with this style. Now, Alive finishing up his stim pack as well as his combat shield here. He's actually already finished up his combat shield, finishing up his stim pack here in just a little bit. It looks like he may very well be looking here to move out across the map, but already after defending that early game pressure, Neeb is looking like he's 24 supply ahead. And of course, he can still continue up those warpins here as well. He's got a lot of pylons here at the front to trigger those photon overcharges. A few of these Phoenixes are currently caught out of position, and while there are 2 medevacs trying to reinforce this fight, maybe they will get picked off here very shortly. Adepts trying to move forward here as well. Revelation being used on that army, and here we go. Oh my god, the Phoenixes will be able to catch all of these units here in the middle of the map. They're going to be able to get 2 full medevacs worth of units, and the supply count right here for the Terran player in blue absolutely plummets. I mean, Neeb shutting down all of the aggression, and it looks like he may very well be moving across the map right now. He just picked himself up some very subliminal defenses there. He's gonna be able to move across the map right now and potentially even close out this game. Getting 2 full medevacs worth of units, though, that is an extremely big deal. The shades are being activated, but currently there is still a wall here available. However, that depot does get shot down. These shades do go through. The Phoenixes are target firing down all of the medevacs, keeping that count low, so not a whole lot of these stim packs can indeed be used, and just simply the sheer amount of units that are available right now for the Protoss player in red will allow him to do game-ending damage here, and indeed, Alive is gonna be capable of GGing out of this match, because Neeb just simply obtained the victory. Now, I didn't plan for this, but this is almost a perfect example on why the Phoenix Adept style is so very strong. And that's actually, before closing out this video, let's talk about the implications really quickly. If they do indeed go ahead, and by the time this video is live, maybe they have already gone ahead, but if they really do go ahead by nerfing the health of the Adept by 10. So I think the implications of it mostly get limited right now to the Protoss versus Terran matchup. I mean, in Protoss versus Zerg, it is most definitely going to be pretty impactful as well, but there are at the very least quite a few different options. The reason why the Phoenix Adept style became so very popular is because for the longest time, siege tanks and liberators dominated Protoss versus Terran. I'm a little worried that if they just straight up nerf the Adept health, it is going to be too weak and will once again allow the Siege Tank Liberator style with the bio on the ground to simply absolutely dominate the matchup once again. Now, I've seen quite a few people argue different kinds of solutions to this problem. For example, to nerf the Adept but then buff up the Zealot, which I actually really do like the idea of. In Terran vs Protoss right now, the Zealot is not being used all too often. Main reason for that is that with charge, I mean, first off, charge is very expensive, but then secondly, as soon as they charge at a unit, they really are not any more microable than they were previously, and they just simply sort of die, in particular to siege tanks, because with the charge ability, they've got a tendency to clump up and all that, so I would really like to see a buff to the Zealot or maybe an AI change to the Zealot. I would not be opposed to that whatsoever. So that's like the first, I guess, change that people have suggested. But secondly, instead of just simply straight up reducing the amount of health that an Adept has, maybe they could go ahead and nerf the Shade instead, which I actually like a lot more. Snoot, for example, suggested that they should go ahead and reduce the movement speed of the Shade. So, for example, roaches can follow it around a little bit easier. Or, for example, you know, the Terran bio units can also predict where it's going to be at a little bit easier as well. Instead of the units just simply, you know, spawning in the middle of your army and you have no way of getting out of there. I've also seen people suggest that you should not be able to cancel the Shade ability anymore, or just to simply increase the cooldown of the Shade ability so they cannot be at like 4 different places at once nearly as easily as they can right now, and I'm personally actually a much bigger fan of that as well. I'm a little worried, like I said, right, that once again, with a nerf to the Adept, it's just simply gonna be too much of a hit here for the Protoss to be able to be competitive in the matchups. In particular, now that, you know, both DreamHack Austin it's going up in just a couple of days, and then also, of course, the WCS season and the GSL season are just coming up soon too. I'm a little worried that a straight up nerf to the one core unit for, you know, the one core unit from the Protoss, right? I mean, if you talk about it for just a second, I mean, pretty much all army compositions for Protoss currently are based around the Adept, and nerfing that one core unit seems like a very, very big deal to me. Now, besides the discussion about the Adept nerf, apparently they are currently now also looking into indeed the Zealot. I believe also into the Raven's auto turret, because that one may be a little bit too powerful as well. I know they are apparently changing up the other Stargate units for Protoss too. In particular, the Void Rake is currently doesn't really have a whole lot of use other than maybe like 1 or 2 in a very specific scenario. And for example, I believe the Tempest as well. And last but not least, they're also working currently on changing up a bunch of things with the Thor. So there are most definitely still a few other changes in the works as well, but I feel like, you know, I feel like personally, right, being a Zerg player at heart, but having played a lot of random myself as well, and I watch a ton of tournaments, I personally feel like a straight up nerf to the Adept and not giving Protoss any additional strength will hurt them a ton. And, you know, while currently, you know, something will have to change for sure, right? I mean, I'm not gonna deny that fact. Something will have to change for, in particular, Protoss versus Terran. I, generally speaking, am not too big of a fan of nerfing, you know, such an important unit in pretty much all of the matchups. Regardless, let me know what your thoughts are on the nerf to the Adept down below in the comment section of the video. This video turned out to be an absolute perfect example on why this style is so very powerful. I didn't plan on this happening, but, you know, it apparently worked out just in our favor. So definitely let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comment section, because I would love to read them. Anyway, of course, keep in mind this is going to be a bit of a balanced discussion, so we may see some biased opinions down below. Please be nice to each other. I mean, I've asked these kind of questions before, and people start getting some insane arguments. I mean, I get into some insane arguments just discussing balance and, you know, talking how incredible this is and how terrible this is. If you could please have a civilized discussion, that would be much appreciated. But other than that, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I'll see you in the next one.